I think I've got it.
There's the Balmain side on screen now for you. Petherbridge, Lawson, French, Davidson, Bell, Ryan, Lane, Brooks, Owens, Schofield, Hemsley, Marquito and Whittaker. So let's have a quick look at the St George side. And there it is: Burgess, Wilson, Duval, O'Connor, Williams, Rogers, Lenane, Funnell, Fafita, Noak, Newham, Powell and Jones. Balmain running left to right in the first 35 minutes of this one, and that's John Fafita for St George tackle about 8 metres his side of the halfway.
This should be a game of quality, as both teams have lots of players of first-grade standard. I would say that Balmain have the superiority in the forwards. They've got 4 players in the forwards who took place in the first-grade semi-final last year, but I would also think that St George have somewhat of an advantage in the backs, where they're going to be led by their captain, 5'8", Steve Rogers.
And so Roy Masters is now with us. And Roy, thanks for joining us on Grand Final Day 1984.
Very happy to be here, Ray. Obviously just left a disappointed St George camp, where again we've been pipped by a point by those greasy eels from Parramatta.
Yes, I half expected the fireworks would start fairly early on, but here's a bit of luck for you, Roy, with St George getting a penalty about 12 metres out from the Paddington Hill corner.
Young Steve Lenane tapping the ball out there. Outstanding player. We're very happy to have him, and we believe that he's going to go a long way with the club.
That's Rick Powell in the 13, taken to ground. St George are only about 8 metres out from the line as it's worked across to Newham. Some very big front row forwards doing combat out there in this reserve grade grand final. A set play by St George. It backfired, and it looked as though Balmain might have been on a long run down the ground, but they've also obligingly knocked on, and so it's a scrum 15 metres out from the Balmain line. Right in the centre ground. Parramatta third grade, 10-9. No score in reserves. The match just underway if you've just joined us, and Greg Lane coughs the ball up, and that's a very valuable piece of possession for St George. And away goes Jones from dummy half.
Well taken. Oh, O'Connor's lost the ball.
Michael O'Connor dropping it with the line just 2 metres in front of him. And so it'll come out for the line dropout now between the sticks.
That was a good opportunity for St George to come up with a try. The problem in the Balmain defence was Ron Ryan, the 5'8", moved up too quickly. That left a little hole for Jones to go through. He was able to do that, pop the pass up, but St George player O'Connor couldn't hold the ball, and now play will restart with the line dropout.
Yes, St George at least got the bonus of getting possession back. Pilot line dropout, and they get 2 points in front now from the mandatory kick for the fact that the line dropout has gone out on the full.
Balmain fullback Rod Petherbridge taking the line dropout. He went for everything, and he's put it out on the full, so it's going to be the very easiest of penalty kicks for St George winger Brad Wilson. Roy, thank you.
Brad, of course, is the brother of Kenny Wilson, who ironically is now coaching the Parramatta first grade in their kicking duties.
Well, if he kicks half as good as Ken, he's half a genius.
Well, he's a left footer as well, which just goes to show you that kicking is an hereditary thing, not an acquired thing.
Brad Wilson taking this attempted penalty from right in front. Terrible mistake to make, particularly in a grand final, to give them a presentation. We'll be taking commercials during the reserve grade grand final, but as I said earlier, in first grade we'll be uninterrupted. So Wilson moves in and politely puts it between the uprights. The flags are in the air. So St George draws first blood in the reserve grade grand final, and they lead Balmain by 2 points to 0. So we come back with St George in possession about 15 metres out from their own line. They're leading by 2 points to 0, and taking it out vigorously was Bill Noak, and he's lost it, and it's played by Mike Marquito for Balmain. Here's Kerry Hemsley, and it's been put down out in the centres by James Bell, the number 4. Here's Fafita coming away with the ball. Just inside the St George 22. Dummy half is Jones, and this is Powell. We'll be going to Wayne Pearce for his comments during this reserve grade grand final. He, of course, has a very keen interest in it. In fact, Wayne's in position now, and a touch of nerves, Wayne, with Petherbridge and that line drop out, would you say?
Wayne, I think Ray just crossed to us down there, but you were down in the dressing rooms for a short time before the match. What was the feeling like?
Well, Coach Duffy warmed the Balmain players about the St George backline, and in particular Steve Rogers, Michael O'Connor, and a halfback by the name of Lanane, who he feels is going to make a big impression if Balmain forwards will let him.
Strong St George lineup. Can Balmain defeat them, do you think?
Well, Balmain's also got a strong lineup. 8 of those players on the field today played in our semi-final last year against St George, so there's plenty of experience out there, and it should be a great battle in the forwards on the field.
Great. Back to you, Ray.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, Wayne. And here's Balmain with Hemsley looking for that hole just on the side of the ruck area. He's tackled about 30 metres out from the St George line. It's gone over to Marquito. He pops it back to Lane. The touch judge has come in.
There's a touch judge in. Obviously a St George illegality. Not that those things ever happen. It must be the first time it's happened this year.
So it's Hemsley who's been called out.
Well, there you go, of course. Not the case, Bill.
Hemsley being spoken to by Ward. So St George coming up with the penalty. And the tap is taken on the halfway line, and Powell again takes it up. A very willing worker is Powell. That's Newham. And dummy half is Jones. Ooh, chancy ball there for Billy Noken. He almost gave it back to Balmain, but came out of it on top. Goes through Lanane and on to Rogers, and now it's out to the centre three-quarter, Philip Williams. And right around the bootlaces is David Brooks for Balmain. Rogers gets a kick in, and the winger fell back nicely. That's Mark Lawson for Balmain. He's outside the quarter line, and he's pulled down by the number 5 for St George, Greg Duval.
Of course, there were a number of St George players who didn't play in the first grade semi-final, in the final last weekend, but didn't qualify by the qualification rules to play in this game. And I'm just wondering, Roy, what sort of an effect that's had upon the team.
Oh, it's